What's cracking, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. New video. So today we're gonna do part two of my so-called docu-series on the impact of murder on the community, on your family, your friends, the people that know you. This, as I've said before, I got this idea from a book called Beyond the Bullet. Beyond the Bullet is a book written, check it out on Amazon. If I remember, I'll put the link in the description. It's a book, it's a bunch of stories about people who lost loved ones to gun violence. And I think it's important that we acknowledge all victims. And every time we think of a victim, we think of the direct victim and his direct family members, his friends, loved ones, co-workers, and stuff like that. But the dark secret is there are other victims. When I killed a man and I was sent off to prison, my family was victimized by my actions as well. My friends, my loved ones, they were all victimized. And those victims are kind of shunned by society. They're never brought up. It's almost as if their pain can't be as bad as the person who I killed, their family's pain. And that's not true. Whenever somebody is killed, whenever violence is utilized, there are more victims. And I wanted to do this series to show the other side, the other victims, to acknowledge them. I think all victims need to be acknowledged whenever there's a crime. So this is probably the most in-depth video there will be in the series. This is a childhood friend who knew me before I went to the Youth Authority, after, and who spoke to me about 20 minutes after the shooting occurred. So hopefully you guys enjoy it. If you do me a favor, hit the like button, share this video with anyone you can think of that it would help, and leave a comment. It's a Sunday, so I know it's gonna probably be a slow day, but I think this work right here is important and could be big if we all work together for it. So with that said, everybody, enjoy the video, and I'll see you next time. Okay. How you doing today?
Good.
For the viewers, how long have you known me?
Over 30 years.
Okay. We're gonna have to start from the beginning. You already know what I'm trying to do with this, and you can be as honest as possible, because that's what this is about. So how would you describe the person you met when you met me 30 something years ago?
Confident, good looking, popular. I guess I would say kind of like a leader.
And so I want to let you tell the story however you want to tell it, but okay, let's do this. Do you remember when I got out of the Youth Authority?
I'm not sure if it was when you got out of the Youth Authority, but I remember you came around, and we didn't know, well, my brother didn't know much about you. I did, because I went to school with you, and all he knew was who you were. He had heard who you were, and I just remember him telling me like, oh, I'm gonna go hang out with so-and-so, and I said, oh, really? And he said, yeah, he just got out. That's all I recall.
Okay. And did you notice a difference in who I was then compared to when you met me, or was I the same?
No, I think you were the same.
Think so? Okay. And so I was around. How often do you think after your brother decided he's gonna come kick it with me?
Oh, a lot. You were around a lot. You were around very often, almost like daily.
Mm-hmm. And then an incident occurred
Mm-hmm.
where I took somebody's life.
Mm-hmm.
What do you remember about that time?
I remember coming home from work, and because you used to be around a lot, you used to hang out at our house day and night. So if you were around, you were just around. And I remember coming home from work, and it was about, I want to say 9 o'clock, because at that time I worked like the evening shift, so it was late at night.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember just walking in, and my mom calling me over, and she said something's going on with these guys, which was you and my brother. And I said, what do you mean? And she said, I don't know, they're acting weird. So I went into the room, and I asked you guys, I went into the room, and you and my brother were like sitting there just with like you were numb. There was no reaction whatsoever. You were just looking at the wall. And we used to have kind of like, I would say like a close relationship where I would be, what's going on, or I can be, playful with you, right? So I said, what the hell is going on with you guys? And you both were just numb and said nothing. And I'm like, nothing? And you're like, no. And on other occasions, you would mess around with me or just say a joke or two and whatever. But this time it was very serious. And then my brother got up, and I just remember him saying, I'm going to take Johnny home. And he asked my dad to lend him the keys, and he was going to take you home. And that was it. That's that night.
So when you came in, what actually had happened was your brother was trying to convince me to stay with you guys.
Mm-hmm.
And I was on parole, and I knew, this went down not far from where we all lived.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew, okay, I'm on parole. They're going to probably, come looking for me. If I'm not home, they're going to say, okay, he had something to do with it. So your brother and I were going back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's when you came. So it wasn't that I don't know. I was already thinking I'm done.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, where am I going to go? But I didn't want to involve your family. I didn't want to, because I knew there was a possibility with me being on parole, they were going to come after me. Okay, so your brother took me home and dropped me off. The next day, I went to work. I had my own general maintenance company at the time. Me, my dad, and my cousin owned it. And I remember after work, I went to your pad. I didn't see you, but your brother was outside, and he had just gotten released. I guess he had gotten questioned. And so when I pulled up, he was telling me, hey, get the fuck out of here, or else they're jacking everybody up. You got to go. And I told him, I can't. I can't, because I'm on parole. I'm not going to front myself off. And I remember him saying, the dude that told him, they're asking about him. They're asking about him. And I said, then I ain't going nowhere, because somebody obviously snitched on him, but they haven't said nothing about me. And then the next day after that is when the task force surrounded my house, my mom's house, and they picked me up. And then that's when everything hit the fan. Now, I don't know if you want to speak for yourself and your brother, or just you, or just your brother, but how did my arrest, when I got busted, how did it affect you, your brother, your family? Did it affect you guys?
I guess as far as my brother, I would say that it affected him the most. As for me, I think it was just like we just lost a close friend. But as for my brother, I think he just decided to change his whole life around. It was it was pretty. It was like kind of like a reality check. Like you either change now or things can get bad.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, he had a girlfriend, and he just ended up settling down. And I think for a while, you know, we were raised kind of poor, so we used to share a room. My brother and I did. I mean, not share beds, but we shared a room, and I often remember him having nightmares. Like I remember him that night when all this happened. After you went home,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I ever told you, but I heard him like crying, and I asked him. I said, "Are you okay?" And he said, "No, I'm not okay." And I said, "What's wrong?" And he just said, I'm just not okay right now." And through the time, like I remember him, like even after we moved from where we originally lived, we moved to a different place, and he would always have nightmares, like somebody would break into the house, or somebody would, like, it was pretty much like, what is that,
PTSD.
yeah, like he would always think like someone's gonna come and get me. You know, he would wake up in the middle of the night and he would cry, and so I think in so many ways it affected me. It affected him more than it affected me. As far as my family and my mom and everybody, I think my mom always saw you like a son. So I think it was she was sad, you know, to see what had happened to you, because she was just like you. She always said you were such a good kid. My aunt would always tell me, he was such a handsome guy. Like he would have been a model, or like he would have been so much more. You know, he had so much going for himself. But that's what they always say.
Well, I remember I called a couple times while I was in the county, and I remember I don't remember if it was you or your brother told me, yeah, my mom knows you didn't do it, but you know, I knew I did it. She knew. I mean, your brother knew I did it, and but it was a trip. I know one of the times that I called, because I think I only called 3 times, and one of the times I called is when your brother, I could tell he was nervous to talk to me, to tell me what he wanted to tell me, or ask me what he wanted to ask me, and but I had called, and he told me, he goes, "Hey, I want to ask you a question." I said, "What's up?" And he said, "Look, Combs, you know, you're the one that started the Tinies, and these dudes didn't hesitate to snitch on you, you know, and I'm nobody in the neighborhood, and I don't even want to kick it with these dudes, because if they're willing to tell on you that quick, what are they going to do to me?" And I remember I told him, I said, "Hey, look, whatever you want to do, I got your back. If anybody ever says anything, tell them to get at me." And he was like, "All right." And that's why I was surprised when I got out. You know, I had been out years, and before I even talked to you and your brother. And when I did talk to you guys, and then I heard that he had some problems because of my case, and it was all bull. Like he was the only one that never snitched on me, never said nothing about me. And the guys that snitched on me tried to say he did it. And because they were more popular in the neighborhood, people overlooked what they did. And, you know, I never knew that. And it's unfortunate. And I think that added to, you know, some of the sadness that he had as well, you know. But yeah, you know, I don't know. I think that, you know, in this series that I'm trying to do, this is probably the most detailed as far as the case that there's gonna be in this series, because even though you weren't there, I was always at the house. I was always with your brother, and you did see us both probably 20 minutes after the murder took place. And you know, you have your recollection, the way, you know, you saw us staring off into space. I remember I was already plotting, what do I do? Do I run? Do I not? I know I couldn't because I was on parole. But this whole thing, like, I don't know. I mean, obviously, like you said, you know, you were doing your thing, and you were on the verge of getting married and stuff. So it wasn't an effect really on you, but I know it affected your brother. Unfortunately, we lost your brother a couple years back. it would have been great to get his point of view, because I think out of everyone, I think my case affected my mom, my daughter, and your brother the most. I mean, I really believe that, you know. And it's unfortunate that he couldn't tell his story, because I think that would have been very impactful. But hopefully this story and what happened?
What I was gonna say is that he actually became very religious after what happened to you. You know, he believed in God a lot, and he used to hide out for a couple of days. He used to hide out at my sister's house because after you got caught and there was so much going on in the neighborhood that he would literally go to my sister's house and hide out over there. And there was a story where he said one time that really changed his life was, he would just sit outside sometimes because my sister wasn't home, or he would like wait for her to get home, and he said he was sitting in the sidewalk, and this man, like literally old, he said I was sitting there and I had my head down, and he said, and I was like, he was sad, and I don't know what he did, maybe he cried, I don't know. And he said, this man came up to me and he said, son, he said, I see that you're hurting. And he handed him a Bible. And he looked up and he said, he took the Bible from him and he said, believe in God, like turn yourself to God. And my brother said, oh, okay, like whatever. And he grabbed the Bible and he swears that he looked up and the man was gone. And he said, that was my sign of like, change your life,
Absolutely.
And he said, that's when I realized like I need to change now, but this was like days after that happened. Like he went through like some episodes where he was just like, he would cry day and night. He would hide out. He would get up in the morning, shower, and then go to my sister's. And because nobody knew where my sister would live, everybody knew where we lived because we, everybody hung out at our house.
Everybody's a party every weekend.
Yeah, and he would just get up and go. Like he would just take the bus or ride his bike or whatever he needed to do. And sometimes nobody knew what was going on. My sister didn't know what was going on. Nobody knew. My mom would ask questions like, what happened? Like, why is he leaving or whatever? Nobody knew. And he would just hide out there for days.
Well, I remember while I was in the county, one of the homies said that, I don't want to say who, but in retaliation for what I did, they jacked up one of the homies. Matter of fact, I could say it. He passed away. The homie Wessos. They threw Wessos on the hood of a car, and they pulled out a shotgun on him, and they told him, "We should kill you for what you did." And he was like, "Do what you got to do," and they didn't do it. So I don't know if your brother had heard about that, but I remember hearing about that because Wessos wound up on the same tier with me in the county jail not long after that. But yeah, as far as that your brother being handed the Bible, I've done stories on, I believe I've ran into angels 3 times since I've been out, so I believe that. But anyways, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add. I don't know if there's anything else I could even ask.
I do want to add something. When my brother and I found out that you got busted, I think we found out through the news, not necessarily by anyone else. We were just waiting to hear what was going on, and we found out through the news that you had gotten busted. He asked me to give him a ride to your ex-girlfriend's house or wife, and we drove by the neighborhood. We drove a couple of times to see if anything was going on. We actually drove by your mom's house. We didn't see anything. And then we did drive by her house, and she came out and she told us that you had just gotten arrested and that it would happen at your mom's house and that she was expecting your baby. And we were kind of shocked because we didn't know that. And that was actually pretty sad because at the time we're just thinking like, damn, what's gonna happen, and she told us she was just a couple weeks pregnant, and that she didn't know what she was gonna do, and that was pretty much it.
Yeah, so when I got busted, she was 8 weeks pregnant, and nobody knew. Only one person knew, was my cousin Stevie. And but yeah, you know, the sad thing about that, and it has to be added to the story, is you know, I've told my daughter this. My daughter was not an accident. Her mom and I actually sat down and discussed, like, hey, let's do this. She was on birth control, and she said, you know, I was thinking about stopping birth control, and I said, yeah, let's have a baby, you know, because we had been together since I was 14, I think. And so we talked about it, and you know, and so we decided, yeah, let's do that. And I remember when I think she was late on her period, and I had my mom go get a pregnancy test, and when she brought it back, I made her, I go, come on, we're going to the bathroom. I took her to the bathroom, and I remember she peed, and I was in there with her, and I was like, I'm gonna do it. And I was like, I remember you had to put 3 drops in it in one spot, and it would light up red, and after it lit up red, give it 5 minutes, and it would do a plus or a minus. And I remember she stood up, and she was washing her hands, and I was dropping the drops in there, and when I was dropping the drops, it didn't light up the little red thing. It immediately lit up the plus signs.
Oh.
And I was like, hey, and she was like, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. And she ran into my bedroom. And I was like, what the fuck? So I poured the rest of her pee in the toilet, and I washed my hands, and I went, and I remember I was so happy that I was going to be a dad. You know, and people didn't see me as that. I mean, you know how I was. Yeah. Everybody used to say I was, what do they used to say?
You're a player.
Yeah, but they used to say I was conceited and stuck up, and it wasn't that. You know, it was a front I was putting up. But anyway, so I went in the bedroom, and I was so happy. I got some tape, and I taped it to my wall, because I wanted, when people come in, they're gonna see right away. Boom, there's the pregnancy test, and I was all happy. And I was like, yeah, this and that. I was just talking away a mile a minute, and I was putting it on the wall. And then I looked over to her, and she was on the bed, and she was crying. And I remember I looked at her, wait, the hell are you crying for? And that's when my mom walked in, and I told my mom, get out of here and close the door. And she was like, is she crying? I said, get out and close the door. And I got on the bed with her, and I was like, what's wrong? And she told me, I'm afraid you're gonna go back. You know, you just did these 3 years when I was in White. She was like, you just did these 3 years, and it was so hard for me to do 3 years like that. You know, and she goes, I can't do this by myself. I cannot raise a baby by myself. And anybody that knows me knows when I make a promise, I keep it. And I told her, I promise you, I'm not going back. And it was, I don't even think 2 weeks later, I'm fighting the death penalty. Yeah, that's, I just wanted to make sure I added that so people understand how, you know, I had the greatest of intentions. I was so happy that I was going to be a dad, and I chose to kill somebody rather than come home that night and be a dad. You know, another thing, and I don't know if you want to talk about it, and we won't say any names, is, you know, that we had friends from out of town that were really cool with us. And when I was in the county jail, I don't think I've ever said this before, but there was 2 incidences where this occurred, but with the people that we mutually know from out of town. You know what they offered when it came to the guys that told on me.
Yeah, they had said that they would hurt these people.
They would kill them.
Yeah, if they needed to. Yeah.
They said, hey, if you want, we'll kill this dude.
Yeah.
And I told him, you're not from Santa Barbara. You can't do it.
Right.
Leave it alone. And the second one was, there was a certain 1% club bikers that approached someone in my family, and they said, look, your family member did what he had to do, and what these dudes are doing to him by snitching on me, what they're talking about, that's not cool. So whoever is lining up to testify against him, all we need is the addresses, and we'll make sure no one testifies. And that was another thing where I had told the family member, I don't know who they are, and I don't trust it, you know. But that, I mean, this thing could have turned into so many, you know, so many different ways. It could have turned into like more deaths, more time, more lives busted up and destroyed. And luckily it didn't. You know, it's unfortunate that I caused the damage that I did. And that's what this series is. It's exposing the damage that is caused when we make horrible decisions to take someone's life. Because at the end of the day, only God has that choice. With that said, everybody, please be safe, be smart, and tell the ones you love that you love them.